A Shattered Legacy, the death of Brandon Lee on the set of The Crow introduction. In Hollywood, tragedy is never far from legend. Some stories grow more haunting with each telling, becoming cautionary tales whispered on film sets and among the faithful who still believe that cinema, for all its glitter, is shadowed by ghosts. Few tragedies embody this as chillingly as the death of Brandon Lee, martial artist, actor, son of Bruce Lee, who died at just 28 while filming what would become his greatest and last work, The Crow. The accident that claimed Brandon Lee's life on March 31, 1993, was a freak convergence of oversight, cost-cutting, and bad luck, yet its ripple effects reshaped industry safety standards and left an enduring stain on Hollywood's conscience. This is the story of how a promising career ended too soon, the timeline of events leading to that fateful night, and what happened in the aftermath, both for those closest to Brandon and the industry that failed him. Rising star, Brandon Lee before The Crow. To understand the weight of this loss, one must appreciate Brandon Lee not just as the son of Bruce Lee, but as an actor who was steadily stepping out of his father's long shadow. Born in 1965, Brandon was only 8 years old when Bruce Lee died under sudden, still disputed circumstances in Hong Kong. The younger Lee grew up burdened with the dual inheritance of fame and mystery, as fans and media alike spun theories about a supposed Lee family curse. Determined to craft his own identity, Brandon pursued acting with dedication. After roles in modest action flicks like Legacy of Rage and Showdown in Little Tokyo, Hollywood began to notice that he had his father's physical grace and charisma, but also a depth that could transcend martial arts roles. When he signed on to play Eric Draven in The Crow, a rock musician resurrected to avenge his murder and that of his fiancée, Lee seemed poised to break through as a leading man with both edge and soul. A troubled production on The Crow began in 1992 under director Alex Proyas. From the start, the film was ambitious, dark, violent, and stylish, mixing gothic horror with gritty urban fantasy. Its source material, James O'Barr's underground comic book, was itself born of pain. O'Barr wrote it while grieving for a lost love. In hindsight, it feels tragically fitting that this tale of resurrection would become forever associated with a real death. The film's budget was tight, around $15 million, and the crew was under pressure to deliver atmospheric stunts and effects on a constrained schedule. Safety corners were cut, sets were makeshift, and several small accidents had already occurred before the fatal night. Some cast and crew later described a tense, eerie atmosphere on set, worsened by long night shoots and Wilmington, North Carolina's unpredictable weather. Timeline to tragedy, March 31st, 1993. March 30th, 1993, early evening. The day's shooting called for an interior scene inside Eric Draven's apartment. The pivotal moment. Eric comes home to find his fiancée, Shelley, being assaulted. In the scripted sequence, Fun Boy, Michael Massey, shoots Eric with a revolver as he enters the room. Prop preparation. The revolver was a real firearm modified for blanks, common practice at the time. Previously, the production team had filmed close-ups of dummy bullets in the revolver's cylinder. To make these dummy rounds, they disassembled live rounds, emptied the gunpowder, but failed to remove the primer at the back of the cartridge, a crucial oversight. Firing the dummy. While shooting close-ups days earlier, someone pulled the trigger on the revolver with the dummy rounds loaded. The primer alone had enough force to dislodge the bullet tip from its casing and lodge it partway down the barrel, a squib load. Because the gun was not properly checked afterward, no one noticed. March 30th, 11:30 p.m., final scene setup. On this night, the scene required Michael Massey to fire the revolver directly at Brandon Lee from about 12 to 15 feet away, using a blank round to simulate muzzle flash and sound. When Massey fired the revolver, the blank's explosive force propelled the previously stuck bullet tip from the barrel at nearly full speed. It struck Lee in the abdomen, tearing through vital organs and lodging near his spine. At first, cast and crew thought Lee was acting. He collapsed on the floor, clutching his stomach. Within seconds, horror dawned. This was not scripted. On-set medics rushed to stabilize him. Brandon was transported to New Hanover Regional Medical Center. Doctors labored for hours, performing massive blood transfusions and emergency surgery. Despite desperate efforts, Brandon Lee succumbed to his injuries after 6 hours on the operating table. He was 28 years old. Immediate fallout news spread swiftly. The shock among cast and crew was total. Michael Massey, who pulled the trigger, was so traumatized that he took a long hiatus from acting. Director Alex Proyas suspended filming indefinitely. An investigation by Wilmington Police and OSHA found a series of catastrophic lapses. Use of real weapons rather than prop-only versions. Improper handling and storage of dummy rounds. No licensed weapons master on set at the time. Untrained crew members tasked with gun safety. The shooting was ruled accidental. No criminal charges were filed, though Lee's mother, Linda Lee Cadwell, filed a civil suit against the production companies, which was settled out of court for an undisclosed sum. Completing The Crow after weeks of uncertainty, producers decided to finish The Crow. To honor Brandon's work and keep the film from becoming a financial disaster, they used a combination of script rewrites, body doubles, and early digital effects, a pioneering use of CGI to insert Lee's likeness into incomplete scenes. It was a delicate and controversial process, but when the film was released in May 1994, audiences and critics alike praised its grim beauty and Lee's haunting final performance. Brandon's portrayal of Eric Draven, romantic, tragic, and vengeful, achieved instant cult status. The Crow earned more than $50 million domestically, far exceeding expectations, and inspired a devoted fan base. Long-term industry changes. Brandon Lee's death, alongside earlier tragedies like the on-set shooting of actor John Eric Hexum in 1984, finally forced Hollywood to face its lax approach to firearms on sets. In the years following, major studios strengthened weapons protocols, requiring licensed armorers and stricter chains of custody for real guns. Many productions switched to airsoft replicas or non-firing rubber props, adding muzzle flash digitally in post-production. Actors were increasingly trained to handle firearms safely under supervision. Yet accidents still happen. The 2021 shooting on the set of Rust, in which Alec Baldwin discharged a revolver killing cinematographer Helena Hutchins, grimly echoed the same pattern. Cost-cutting, safety negligence, and a fatal breakdown in protocol. For many, it felt like Brandon Lee's ghost had returned to remind Hollywood of lessons unlearned. Legacy and unanswered questions. To this day, fans and conspiracy theorists debate whether Lee's death was purely accidental. Whispers about the Lee family curse persist, fueled by eerie parallels to Bruce Lee's sudden death at 32. While rational explanations exist, the coincidences, two promising martial arts stars, father and son, both dying young under mysterious or freakish circumstances, keep the myth alive. Brandon Lee was laid to rest beside his father in Seattle's Lakeview Cemetery. His fiancée at the time, Eliza Hutton, has largely stayed out of the public eye, but has occasionally spoken about Brandon's kindness, humor, and how close they were to marrying. In the decades since, Brandon Lee has become an icon not just for the Crow's gothic faithful, but for generations who see in his story a warning about Hollywood's tendency to value profit over people's lives. A timeline of key events. 1965, Brandon Bruce Lee is born in Oakland, California. 1973, Bruce Lee dies at age 32. 1985 to 1991, Brandon takes early film roles, mostly martial arts action films. 1992, filming of The Crow begins in Wilmington, NC. March 30th, 1993, Brandon is shot during filming of an apartment scene. March 31st, 1993, 1:04 p.m., Brandon Lee dies at New Hanover Regional Medical Center. April 1993, filming halts. Investigations begin. May 1994, The Crow is released to critical acclaim and box office success. 1994 present, industry standards for on-set weapons continue evolving, though tragic repeats occur. Conclusion. Brandon Lee's death remains one of the film industry's most sobering reminders that movie magic comes at a cost, and that cutting corners can cost lives. Today, he is remembered not just for his final ghostly performance in The Crow, but as a bright talent stolen by a preventable tragedy. In the words of his character Eric Draven, it can't rain all the time. But sometimes, for those left behind, it feels like it does. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10.